Start recording. For the sake of this webinar, I would prefer questions to be asked after the presentation, just because we have many people outside, although in general, I like to be more interactive when questions are asked while I'm talking about something. All right, so I title my presentation Current Research Projects in Pion, What Do We Do and Why? And this is a very loose title, as you could see along my slides. Okay, why is it not working? By now you probably already are familiar with the mission, vision statements, and it says that Pion is a science-based company which provides innovative technology, solution support, and scientific expertise to the drug development industry. So what it means, at least for myself, that we speak with the scientists in pharmaceutical research, with our peers, we're speaking their language, and we can try to tackle their problem from the angle they see it and we see it. So we try to help them, not just coming to them and listing a number of features which our instrument or device can provide, but we are trying to listen to them, and we can try and actually to educate them in some cases, and we try to come together to the solution which will suit the best the pharmaceutical industry. So pharmaceutical industry is obviously huge. So where Pion stands, where we interact with people, what area? It's definitely not clinical trials or marketing of the new drugs, which pharmaceutical industry does. So if you think of the drug molecule, drug which does something in your body, cures some kind of disease, you can think of one day in the life of the drug molecule. And as any one day, it consists of several phases. So this day, first of all, in order the drug to be active and curing the disease, it needs to be absorbed. Because if you swallow something and it doesn't get absorbed through your intestinal tract, it's useless. If you inject something and just sits as a blob under your skin, it's useless. So absorption, or we can think about this as a morning of the drug molecule, it's a very important step. Then when it's absorbed, it needs to be distributed. So it distributes itself into the different organs. So, this is important, where it gets accumulated, where it gets distributed. So it gets absorbed and distributed, the drug changes its chemical structure. So it's metabolized. So you swallow one drug, it interacts with enzymes in your body or with other biochemical agents, and it changes its structure. It may be active initially and become inactive when it changes the structure. Or sometimes it's actually vice versa. Sometimes the drugs are made in such a way that they are not active initially, but they rely on this change to become active. And finally, as day goes by and we go to the evening, drug needs to be eliminated from the body. So it's get excreted. So this is one day in the life of the drug molecules, and it's very commonly known in the pharmaceutical industry under acronym ADME: absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion. So also very often you can hear or you can see another acronym which adds toxicity to the picture, and then the acronym becomes ADME. So this is the area of the drug development where Pion is involved, but we are even more narrowly involved in the absorption of the drug. So that's where the majority of our technology, instruments, knowledge is focused. We also can work in the distribution somewhat, although this is outside of our key area of expertise. So we're dealing with the morning routine of the drug molecule, namely absorption. You also may often hear term bioavailability or bioavailable, and some people actually equates it to absorption, but it's not quite the same. So bioavailable drug is absorbed drug minus metabolized drug. So this is bioavailable drug, or drug which is available to reach the target and cure whatever it's supposed to be curing. Okay, so Pion Solutions, and I just list them, they deal with multiple problems and multiple tasks which mostly related to absorption. Because in order to know whether drug can be absorbed, we need to know if drug can solubilize itself in the media which is representative of your gastrointestinal tract. So if it cannot be solubilized, and it's orally administered, it cannot be absorbed. So we have solutions for measuring solubility. We need to know how fast it can solubilize, it can go to the solution, thus dissolution term. So dissolution, how fast, solubility, how much drug can be absorbed. Then there is term permeability, which means that how fast it can transfer through biological membrane. Again, I will be talking mostly about orally absorbed drugs, meaning that when drug is absorbed, let's say it's solubilized, now it needs to cross the membrane between the gastrointestinal tract to go to the bloodstream. So this is permeability. Also some of our instruments like SDI and Rainbow can also work in the quality control, but this quality control attribute also relates to absorption property of the drug. So you can probably think, so this is our instruments, and some of you are familiar with them either from building them together or from distributing quotes. So now we not only familiar with them from the lab point of view, but also from operational point of view, from accounting point of view. So absorption relates to mass transport of drug compound from gastrointestinal tract through the membrane to systemic circulation. Again, this is if we talk about orally absorbed drugs. You can think, so I showed you Pion devices, and this is like a complex picture of human body. How this relatively, although device may be complex, but it may be complex in the mechanical, electronical sense, but it doesn't seem to be as complex as the human body. So how these devices which Pion produce can predict what's going on in the body. So we need some kind of the model. So the first kind of, or maybe some people's instinct would be, let's try to create something very similar to the human body. And actually it's been done already in the industry. People created a device which I, for the lack of the better term, call a plumbing man, which tries to plumb lots of different chambers together, trying to replicate as much as they can different organs in the human body and model the absorption of the drug from the time it's swallowed through the entire gastrointestinal tract to the excretion level. So this is a very complex, so you can imagine, so however, the scientists very often found that if you complicate the picture, you may not see the fundamental principles, you may not see the fundamental causes of the certain drug behavior. And I'm not even talking now about the complexity of the device, the maintenance of these complex devices, the throughput you can put through this device. It probably can do 1 tablet per 24 hours at the best. And then people need to spend a couple days cleaning that before it's ready to go to the next test. So it's a very complex, although they do exist in the industry. So myself, I'm physicist by the training. In the physics, people very often use abstract models, and probably you might have seen from your school days, it's like absolutely spherical rigid body. There is not such a thing in the universe, absolutely spherical rigid body. However, a lot of phenomena can be explained by this very abstract notion, like the planets rotating around sun, lots and lots of phenomenon. So what if we take the real system, biological system, and try to create a simplified model for that? So, and here I'd like you to introduce to you, some people already know, my friend is absolutely cylindrical man. So absolutely cylindrical man has absolutely cylindrical intestine and absolutely cylindrical stomach. So what it means that a lot of the complex mathematical equations and problems which scientists need to solve in order to get how much drug is absorbed from a certain drug product dosage form can be actually exactly solved for absolutely cylindrical man. And it also appeared that the line of the products which Pion introduced now a couple of years ago, or some of them even longer, and it's Flux line of products like microflux, macroflux, and bioflux actually can describe perfectly well the absorption process for absolutely cylindrical man. Okay, you may say, oh, that's great, but what's the relevance the absolutely cylindrical man has to the real man? Can we then say that if we predict something for our friend, it also can be predicted for a real human? So, and this is where this Pion research come to place, at least one example of that, and that's when we need to demonstrate it. That's we need to convince our friends and colleagues, and sometimes not friends in pharmaceutical industry, that indeed this is a valid model to predict absorption of the drug. So this is an example from the publication which came last year from the work we did with Novartis in Basel, Switzerland, when we showed that the data measured with microflux device actually correlates perfectly with the data collected in animals. So, and there were a couple other publications which I decided to skip for the sake of the time, with Genentech, when we demonstrated the usage of macroflux device. Eniko Borbas, whom many of you know, led a series of publications using flux devices to demonstrate the relevance between the measurements, which is done in very, very simple systems, to what's going on in humans or in animal study. So all of this actually also gave us a hint or an idea for the research project, which is one of the actively run right now. And this is, can we project prediction of fraction absorbed in our cylindrical man, or based on flux measurement, to the human fraction absorbed? And it appeared to be that, at least for the class of the compounds, which are very common development compound in the industry, we have a very kind of good indication that it can be done. So this is something we are actively working on right now. We have some data points which indicate that it is a very promising, and the project is active at the moment, where we will get a number of the drug product formulations, and which absorption fraction of drug absorbed in the humans is known, and we would like to predict it based on the flux measurement and demonstrate this utility of the flux. So that brings me to the outlining of at least several projects which will be very active in the 2019. And as I already mentioned, one is based on the flux related projects. and its prediction of dose fraction absorbed based on the flux values, as I demonstrated previously. It's also investigation of the different artificial membranes to be used for flux measurements, so we can work with more classes of drugs. Flux-related projects continuing in Budapest with Eniker and her team, and she's trying to work whether flux can be used for prediction of bioequivalence. Bioequivalence is a very important term for generic drug companies. When they come up with a version of the drug which is not brand name, they need to prove that this drug acts exactly the same as original drug. And for that, they usually need to do the human studies, which are extremely expensive. And in order to jump into these human studies, we demonstrate that they can do some very relatively simple study using our devices to actually predict what will happen during the bioequivalence study. Also, Haotian is working very actively in China to promote Flux product. He actually told me in the telephone call that Chinese FDA considering very seriously to use flux measurements as a quality control measure of their generic drugs, which would be a huge step in promoting that. And he also is now involved in the research project with Roche China and a university in China. Again, they have a number of animal data, and Haotian will help them, will train them, so they can, again, demonstrate for themselves the usage of our devices. Another family of the projects which is extremely important for the company is the projects related to the Caesar product, and we know that we need to improve the extracellular matrix in our cartridges which use this product, and these are cartridges which mimic environment of subcutaneous injection. So this is another area. So I was talking about oral absorption. This is more subcutaneous absorption. So this is a different area. It also relates to another huge and very fastly growing area of the pharmaceutical industry, which relates to biomolecule. So, and this is area which would be extremely useful for Pion to go into. Right now, we mostly work with so-called small molecule market, meaning that these are small molecules which are encapsulated in the drugs which can be orally absorbed. So we also investigate different filter material on the Caesar cartridges. This is another big project on Caesars, and one of the again, Lumen project, it's evaluating a fiber optic usage as a detection method in Caesar. So these are a list of workshops and seminars which are coming really shortly. You can see that the team will be very busy through the month May, June, July, when we have fiber optic training scheduled, which will be here in Billerica in the middle of May. Then it will be in Europe in the middle of June, closer to kind of last 3rd of June, and then there will be a Japanese fiber optic training scheduled for July. We also scheduled Pampa training in the Billerica facility, and there is also a workshop in Denmark where people will be trained on different techniques used for physicochemical measurements, and although we are not training there because they don't have our instruments, but we would like to present our methods and our instruments there. And this is where Carl and myself planned to go. I don't know if you are aware, but Pion is continuing the trend started by Sirius in 2016, which called biorelevant question mark. This is a series of scientific conferences. This is not direct promotion of Pion's instrument, but it's rather indirect, which sometimes is more powerful. because the peers from the industry will be talking not only about our instruments, but also the methods which are dear to our hearts. And the fact that the superstar of the pharmaceutical industry agreed to speak to this at this conference also shows the strong scientific background of Pion. So they don't see us as just a instrument, sales and marketing company, but also as a science company. So today's research, it's tomorrow products and services. So what we do, if we kind of try to list it, internal research projects, some examples which I showed previously, it goes to application development. So we try to show that people more and more applications where our instruments can be used. We try to involve in the meaningful external collaborations with academia and industry when not only we hear feedback from them, but also we exchange ideas which can bring new services, new products to the market. We go through promotion of Pion product services through scientific presentations and posters. I will be giving presentation later today at Vertex. So this is part of activity which is important. We also do advanced training programs for user and Pion staff, some of the workshops I mentioned previously, and very important, it's preparation of sales support material, technical and application notes, training video, and etc. So as company grows, the role of the science in the company is evolving, obviously as expected in the bigger company. So scientific ideas which are born from interaction or close interaction between the product development team, between the commercial team, between the research laboratory team, primarily, but not exclusively. And also, this team need to be working in unison, so we need to hear feedback, and please also ask us for our feedback on this kind of activities. And obviously, these teams must work together in order to all this circle of scientific ideas going into the products work efficiently. So this is all what I wanted to share with you today. As you could see, tried not to be very technical, so I could miss on one part and I also could miss on another part. So please feel free to ask questions, and I'd like to thank everyone who could join me today. So at this point, I can probably unmute the rest of the people. And okay, thank you. Do you have any questions? No? All right.
Actually, if we will return to the slide regarding product development over there, which includes the line as an application for large molecules. Whatever is listed on this slide is relevant to product development. If there are any research projects associated with this product, because as far as I understood, we have concept of method, but how it's supported by research and how much research is planned for this.
Okay, I will repeat the question. So Oksana asked the question regarding Caesar, and she mentioned that the items listed in my slide relates to liability of the product mostly, but they don't relate to the more scientific understanding of what can be done with the scissors. And she was asking whether any research projects are planned in this direction. Is it correct? Okay, so this is excellent question, and from my side, I can say that scissor is a new product in terms of, at least for us, in terms of the area of its applicability, and there is a plan to work with a group which originally developed scissor, and this is Randy Mersney, University of Bath, and who are continuing to investigate other applications. And we must be more closely involved in that and learn. In terms of whether we are planning any chemistry project in our labs, whether UK or US in this year, I think it's probably realistically maybe towards the end of the year, because these development projects are more important at the moment. Any other questions from anywhere?
In this case, I will have one more question. China Medical University, and the rest of efforts associated with how cancer works in China. Are we participating in it? Are we supporting this, those efforts? Do we have access to data? How this project is funded?
Okay, another question from Oksana, because she took it for a team and for the question part. So she was asking about Roche China project initiated by Haotian's interaction with Roche in China and with university. Oksana was asking what part Pion team, again, in the US and UK would be playing in that. So at this point, the work will be done in China. We will have access to the data, and we will have access to the discussion of the data. So I already have a presentation which I can share with all people interested, which came from Roche China.
I don't have a question, but I think it's worth mentioning that we received a patent on the Flux, and it's being held in 8 countries.
Okay, good addition from Mike, which I didn't mention, that Pion has received a patent for Flux. I think it's more macro flux related, because it was impossible to do a broader patent, but it's active in 8 countries. Do we know the countries, Mike?
I think 6 European, United States, Japan, and I don't recall China.
Okay, so it's 6 European countries, US, Japan, and 2 China. Maybe we need to verify. Okay, so again, if you have questions later, or it's just easier for you to email them, please do so, and I'll be replying them promptly. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Konstantin.
Yeah, we did almost as planned for 30 minutes, which is
Thank you.
good.
Thanks, Konstantin.
Okay,
Goodbye.
thank you.